broth, and Anita's drinking
probiotic pineapple juice. That's okay. Today we're talking about the why and how of promoting pro-social behaviors. Yay! So, working with children on the autism spectrum, we get asked a lot by a lot of parents, caregivers. Why isn't my child sharing? How can I get them to be more friendly? So we're going to dive into the why and the how through all the lens of trauma-informed care. Here at Verity, trauma-informed care is our primary thought when teaching, when working with our kiddos. So first, what is the trauma-informed approach? It's not about finding trauma, it's about seeing the behavior differently. So to talk about the trauma-informed care, it's about recognizing that many children, especially those with differences, may have experienced stressors or difficult situations that may impact their nervous systems, which may be something that is completely normal to those that are more neurotypical. For a neurotypical, a slight deviation in the plan, that's fine. It's normal. Whereas someone who's more neurodivergent, especially on the spectrum, that is a crisis. That is everything is shutting down, and it's a lot. It also applies to many other things that we just don't think about. New environments can be traumatic. The way, meeting new people, if that meeting doesn't go the way, you're expecting it to, that adds to that list of trauma. And it really could be anything from a medical procedure to like just the world not understanding them. I know it's very traumatized, especially when you can't communicate what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and then maybe somebody else is also just not receiving that information from you. I know personally, like I had a hard time expressing myself when I'm angry. My thing is just gonna stop, shut down for a little bit, and it could take me up to like 5 to 10 minutes to think of one phrase that I'm going to say, which may be frustrating for like other people to have to wait me out. But it's okay. Here we take in mind that sometimes that's just the process. That's just sometimes what it takes, and it's coming from a place of understanding. The core principles of this approach is safety, making sure your child needs to feel safe. Every person needs to feel safe. That's also in Maslow's
hierarchy of needs. Yes, the first level is safety.
The need of feeling safety both physically and emotionally. And I know, like when I get into stressful situations, my personal mantra is, I am in a safe location. I can be rescued at any time that I need to be. I'm in a safe location. I can be rescued anytime. That feeds both into like, I'm physically in a good spot and mentally I can be okay even if I'm not right now. I still have some control in this environment. Trustworthiness. This is a big thing, especially for, younger kiddos. You need to be consistent and predictable. If, you say too many times, oh, you have a good, day at school, we're going to go get you some fries, but then you don't get them fries. And that is very stressful and traumatic. And now you're an untrustworthy adult. I can't listen to what you're going to say. I can't expect your words to have any true meaning because you don't uphold them. Giving choices. Choices is another great way of feeling in control of your situation. There's a lot of things that we do not have control over. So we take our power back in little ways and ways that we can. I know everyone talks about women getting their haircuts, but a haircut sometimes that's the only way to take control of my life. Everything else is going wrong. I'm going to get bangs. That's something I can control. I know it's going to grow. And that's just a choice that I can make for myself to have a sense of stability. Collaboration, working with your child, not just at them. It's especially in this field. I've been working in this field for about 6 years now. And a big part is there's like, yes, sometimes there's things that are non-negotiable, but let's work with what is negotiable. Alrighty. We have to go wash our hands after, we use the bathroom, but after that, do we want to go play with this or do we want to go do this? Talk through, what do you want? What can we do to, help you get there? What's going to motivate you? You know, sometimes going to the next location, walking hand in hand, that's just not going to be an option. Sometimes that's just not it. So, all right, and again, this is me giving choices to help them make their choice to feel in control of the situation while working with them. And I'll choose, like, do you want a monster stomp? Do you want to hop? And then telling them, and they can make a choice, or they can say, I don't want to do either of those. I want to twirl. Excellent. Perfect. Because in that moment, I'm just glad that they made a choice for themselves. It wasn't one of my options, but they advocated for themselves. And that's a great part of collaboration, is saying yes and running with it. Because sometimes that's just the way we get things done. And empowerment, helping your child develop a sense of self-control and agency. And that's what we do with the choices. So we do with the collaboration. And once you've built that room of safety and trustworthiness, then they start feeling more empowered in their environment. The over cheering for washing hands, because maybe they weren't doing so great, but now that's a feel of, that self-reliance, that I did this.
Yeah.
So now they're getting the confidence to move on to something else to do independently. When we approach behavior from this perspective, and so we shift of, like, what's wrong with them? What are they doing to, what happened? What can we do to help with this? It creates a whole shift in perspective on how we see certain behaviors and how we can work around to create new ones. Eye contact, that's a big one, especially now to start segueing into our what's pro-social. Eye contact. That's a really big one. I know that's a big deficit for those that have the diagnosis for autism spectrum. It's just not necessarily that they're being rude, but it can be scary. It can be scary, being, so small and having to stare at an adult in their eyes. That's a little intimidating. So what I can do is we can work with it instead of, at it. That was a lot of information. And
That was, yeah. Something I really like to talk about is, and I say this often to a lot of people and different parents that I meet, is that every behavior is a form of communication.
Mhm.
And so that's a little bit of what this trauma informed approach likes to hone in on, of, what are we trying to communicate with this behavior? Like, and it's our job, especially when it comes from someone who struggles with communication. It might be maybe they don't understand the social cues, or it could be that they don't have the words at all. But the way that we communicate, someone who can articulate themselves, is by behaviors, right? I mean, you hear it all the time: actions speak louder than words, right? So what trauma informed approach really and truly looks at is what are you trying to communicate by this behavior? And so the shift that you were talking about, I really like the way you put that it's a shift in perspective, because it is a shift in perspective. You're shifting your perspective from thinking about, like, what's wrong in the situation, to what are you trying to communicate to me in this moment. So instead of seeing the behavior as something that's like annoying or hard to deal with, you're truly trying to help. You're truly trying to figure out what's happening. So that's really how I like to approach behaviors. Anyone, everyone in general, even myself. Sometimes I'll have behaviors and think about, like, what was I trying to communicate in that moment? um, and it's it's not always great. So here's where we're going to talk about the actual pro-social part of it. So good segue for your next slide.
yeah. Right, and now we're going to be defining the pro-social behaviors, voluntary actions that benefit another person. And now, saying like benefits another person, that sounds a little weird, but let's get into it, because it doesn't mean just like oh, I gave them $1 million. Like, yes, that benefits another person, but that's not necessarily what we're meaning. As you can see, the examples: sharing a toy, taking turns, asking for help. And you're thinking, why, how does asking for help benefit another person? Well, as somebody who's been trying to help you, oh, that's opened so many doors. I know that now that you need something from me, and that's something that I can do for you. And that's how it benefits, me as the other person. Like, okay, now I'm getting information. This is what we can work with. Because it isn't just about being nice. And yes, we like to use that words a lot, like especially with little kids, like, oh, be nice, oh, it's nice to do this. But it's more than just like traditional words of like nice, you know. Like, yes, it's nice taking turns in a game, where it's like kind of also an expectation of it. And, you know, sometimes like that sharing, that was hard for me because I like my little things. I like everything in my little bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to have to share my bubble.
Yeah.
But understanding that being part of that bubble also means that other people aren't getting that information. That's like, I just need this for myself, but I can hang out with you later. You know, it's also part of like offering that comfort. And I know that emotion recognition in oneself and in others is also known deficit for those on the autism spectrum. And I've worked with that a lot, and hitting hard on the social part of this. I worked with a client for at least a solid year on recognizing emotions in themselves and in others. And it took that whole year from start to finish. And I was moved on to a different client at that time, but then I was able to catch like the mom in a parking lot, and she was like, my family's been going through a really rough time, and yesterday my kid said, Mommy, you look sad.
Oh,
can
poor baby.
can I help you? And started like listing off ways that they could help mom. And she was like bawling up, and it's not the most like appropriate response, but I was like getting ready to like fist pump in the air, like, yes. Because he, as much as work as I did, he built that pro-social behavior for himself of offering that comfort of asking how to help, about understanding mom's feelings. So that's hard even for neurotypical of understanding emotions and feelings of others and creating that empathy. And it is a little taught in this situation, but nonetheless that important. Because asking for help is a really big one. And a little Miss Independent over here, I don't want to ask for help. I just want to do it. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. And sticking to myself, that's not very, pro-social. And to create like that pro-social of like, no, I need to ask for help, because then that, is why it matters. It's that increasing independence for myself, increasing my self-advocacy. And, it does build empathy with other people, for other people to see, oh, you struggle too. There's a lot of people, sometimes we forget to look outside ourselves to be like, oh, you're struggling. You have struggles. That's something that we can all share.
Yeah, because if you just never ask for help, then you're gonna just assume that everyone's like that, and that they don't want or need the help. So you're not actively going out and seeking out those interactions either, of like, you're not recognizing when somebody's needing help, because you're like, oh, that's something I could just do by myself. So I'm sure that person is fine. Right. Versus like understanding like where you would struggle, or if it's like, oh, even if it's like a moment like I can do this by myself, but like the moment where you feel like, it would have been nice if I had a little bit of help in this moment. Like I could stretch it and do it, but it would be helpful if someone was there, plugging in for this, for X, Y, and Z. And understanding that differentiation also makes you a better, like a more pro-social person, right? Because then if you're also asking for help in those moments, even though you could probably do it yourself, but knowing where it's where that balance is lagging a little bit, um it also helps you recognizing that in someone else, and then knowing that, oh, they probably are not going to ask me for help, so going out and lending that helping hand, and that part is the pro-social behavior of recognizing that, and actively being like, hey, can I help you with this? Like, I'm sure you can handle it, but you know the two heads are better than one,
Yeah.
so something like that, and really recognizing the other person. I feel like when we're talking about pro-social behaviors, there's a whole aspect of emotional intelligence that goes along with that, where you're recognizing how you're feeling, what you're doing, and that matters so much, because that's how you then can generalize that to somebody outside of you also, of like, they must be feeling this way, like, and having that empathy, right?
Yeah.
Of like, I can understand um what you're going through, because this is how I feel if I was in that situation, right? So, um, you know, I think that's super, super beneficial of why we even do this, is because, emotional intelligence is a huge, um, it's a huge skill that is hard for everyone, you know? So learning that in any scenario is I think important.
Oh yeah. This is how we build relationships with other people in our community, our environment. Like I know myself, I I couldn't order for myself at like a fast food place for years. And it wasn't until I started working at my own, like at my own little first job, like Pizza Hut, that working there, then I finally was like able to order for myself other places, because I was finally like on the other side of it, being the employee. I'm like, wow. Because seeing like it from both sides kind of does change the way things go about. And it changed something for me,
Mm-hmm.
because then like, yes, I was forced to interact with other people. But then, I found my groove into it.
Yeah.
And and understanding like that this is, difficult for children, who are on the spectrum, because of, their sensory processing,
Mhm.
executive functioning, impulse control, difficulty planning, and everything that's on the site here. Um, and some people may not think about those things, but I know, I think the biggest one, especially like during the summer, we get all these TikToks about when it's so hot outside, you start yelling.
Yeah.
That's a big thing about sensory processing, that everything else in the environment is just too much,
Oh yeah.
that it's hard to get those words out without like it being like angry, or it's like hard. And so, that can be, in a different scale
Mm.
for those on the spectrum. Just the texture of the inside of their shirt
Oh
is that
yeah.
sensory.
Overload. Yeah. Yeah, that's why you see a lot of kiddos like taking their shoes and socks off, because that's something they can control, right? Like when you're in sensory overload mode, what can you control in that moment? You can turn the lights off, you can take your shoes off, you can take your socks off. That's why you see those behaviors happening just randomly, because I mean, they're not random, right? Because in that moment they're trying to communicate, hey, I'm a little overstimulated. I need something to give,
Yeah. That social communication, like you know, autism has like that social learning deficit. So it's like, no, I don't see that cue of like, you're just kind of like tilting your head, looking off to the side as bored. I'm learning like what certain facial cues mean, you
Mm.
know, to like promote the pro-social behaviors of like conversation, communication, um, impulse control. I know sometimes that's also really hard, especially for those that have like autism and ADHD.
Oh.
And so it's like hard to like just sit still, because maybe you want to like wiggle and go, because you just need to get that sensory output.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to build like those pro-social behaviors. And really, it's not a lack of, like it says, a desire, but a difference in wiring. I've had plenty of kids that had like the social like cues missing, that the impulse control, the flexibility. If it didn't match their script, they had a hard time but desperately wanting to hang out with their friends,
Yeah.
to make friends, to play with them. It was just,
There's so much other things going on that it's like hard for them to focus their attention on that, you know? Like, can you imagine if you're just highly overstimulated and you have all of these sensory needs, and like, it's probably the farthest thing from your mind of like saying hello or like making eye contact when you're talking, because you're so just in your own little zone, you know?
yeah.
Um when you have that much going on, you've got to prioritize somewhere.
Yeah.
um
And so like we talk about the why and like the how of getting these pro socials. Our goal isn't to, force them to be more neurotypical or to, respond as like a neurotypical person would. Is about finding their tools, their pathway, to navigate, social events, social interactions in their own way, that can be maybe more easily understood by others.
yeah.
It's about helping them find the way to get those meaningful connections on their own terms.
Yeah.
Because, not every conversation is the same. Not everybody talks the same. So finding, your path and your route is really important. So here's how we're going to go over our strategies for promoting our pro-social behaviors. The power of observation and environmental changes. I know that when my mind is overworked, I have to organize my closet. When my life is
I'm the
falling
opposite of you.
apart,
When my mind is busy, my closet looks like what my mind is like, and it's very messy.
I have to change something in my environment to work with me. So it's changing the setting, not just the child. So like changing the settings. Like I said, I have to organize something in my home. So something is going right, something is in control. And when I'm out and about, and I have to like talk to somebody new, which is still it's still difficult for me just to start conversations, or really for me it's like maintaining that conversation. So like I find something in my setting that like kind of grounds me, that like keeps me going. It's like I know sometimes like I twiddle with like the band of my watch, or I twirl like my thumbs or fingers, or like I twist my pen in my hands. And so that's something in my environment that
Fiddle with.
I can fiddle with, I can control, that feels familiar to me. 'Cause, but that's just something that like I've observed for myself, that I need to be doing something like physical so that I can focus on something more mental.
Yeah.
And so like observing, your child in what they're doing, how they interact just with what they're doing, is a great way to pick up on how to help. Because, some kids interact with like typical things differently. So it's figuring out what they're doing, observing it, because we just watch. We're most likely to see like what are they going to share with other people, what are they going to say, what are they doing, what are they interacting with, and this helps identify their strengths that are already there. Some kids I've seen that their strength is building. So we're going to go with the building. We're going to invite other people to build with us. We can, do something with that, as like to deal and start with their strong suit first. And, we can create, oh no, help me. I don't know how to build a house. And knowing that building is their strong suit, maybe they're more likely to come over like, oh, let me show you. And then we can start building from there. So building um, that shared interest, going off of that, that's already a foot in the door.
Creating that opportunity, for that interaction. And like almost not forcing it, but almost forcing it, because it's like you've watched them enough where okay, like, they're super confident in building. They absolutely love it, and you being there and you're in their play zone and you're playing with the same toys they usually work with really, really fast. And you're just like, oh, I don't know. It's a very, um, it's a good way to promote um, that pro-social behavior of, hey, let me help you, because it's something they're super interested in, you know and they see you doing it wrong. And I think a lot of our kiddos, that bugs them too. Like, that bugs me too. Like, if I know how to help you and I see you doing something wrong, I will hop right in and be like, here's a tip for you,
Oh, yeah.
here's something that's worked for me, and that's something that intrinsically everyone kind of has, that of like,
Oh, me
it's so hard.
a sleeping bag long. Oh, please let me get in there. Let me help you.
Yeah.
Please.
Let me help you, let me teach you, so creating those, like, those opportunities. And so that's why the observation part is so like important, to really gain a good grasp of where do they naturally go, where do they naturally play, what are the things that they like doing, what are the interactions they're naturally doing, and then using their strengths to then promote those pro-social behaviors that then they will get reinforced by. And I think that's one of the next slides, is talking about reinforcement. So I'll let you continue there.
Alrighty. But here's our modeling and direct instruction. Being the model, narrate my own pro-social behaviors. I'm going to share some of my cookies with Dad because I know he likes them. We're doing this one recently. It's about going to the bathroom. About like, oh, well, I need to go ask my friend, if I can go to the bathroom, if the bathroom's available, and then I can, play with my favorite toy. And I know I do this a lot as well. And sometimes I do it so much here at work to the point where I'm doing it at home. And like, as I'm doing the dishes so I can play my game. I ended up modeling it a lot, and I model it for the kids specifically because sometimes they don't know the phrase, they don't know the words to use, and then modeling it is a great example of being able to okay, let me use that formula.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blah 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 so that I can blah blah blah. I know that blah 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 likes this. Here you go. And being that kind of direct clue giving
Yeah.
is
Like, without actually prompting, you're just like very in like on the nose with it,
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna share because X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I'm losing my words, but
It's a great way to show like that.
Yeah.
It's not the lack of desire. It's just, you know, the lack of know-how sometimes. Because
Mhm.
sometimes they really do. They really do want to like get in there. And so now just showing them exactly how to do it. It still gives them enough help, but lets them do it independently as well.
Yeah, and I feel like kids, they really and truly learn the most by seeing the people around them, you know? And so you're not going to see it. Well, you will, but you're not going to see as much of the things that you tell your child to do, much less the things you're doing that they're just copying. That's how they learn the world. That's how they learn these different pro-social behaviors, of seeing kind of how you interact in front of them, and that's what they're grasping, because that's how they're making connections. And this goes for everyone. This goes for neurotypical children as well. You know, that modeling and imitating, that's the first step of learning, for little children, and then use it, throughout your life. Um, if you come from a household where there's a lot of, arguing and fighting, you typically see those behaviors come out, and then vice versa. Like, if you see it, if you grow up in a household that's very kind to each other, and that's very, sharing and this and that, you tend to see those behaviors modeled in real time as well. And so, you know, that part is really important of practicing what you're preaching, right? Of doing, you know, if you gotta talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk too. Like you gotta share your cookies, man. Like if you want them to share their cookies, you gotta share your cookies too. And that one's a hard one for me because I love my cookies.
Oh, I understand.
I don't like sharing them.
And you know what, then that's what the great about the using the visuals is. So like maybe it's not you directly showing sharing the cookies, but you know, you're reading a story of it. And you know, sometimes that's just what clicks for other people. You know, it's just reading about it like, oh, you know, using reading the story of like, I can be a good listener, I can share, you
Mhm.
know, to help show those pro social behaviors actually play out. Because you know, sometimes it just, you know, modeling it doesn't show like the after effect of like, oh, they enjoyed it. Well, it's like the visual you can see, like, oh, here's where like Timmy was sad. Rhonda gave Timmy cookie. Now Timmy's happy.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they need that complete story,
Yep.
that complete visual to continue on to like understand, like, oh, to like see the effects and then implement it themselves. You know, sometimes like visual schedules too of like, all right, well, here's one bit that we need to do. You know, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn.
Yep.
So that's pretty hard concept too.
Mhm.
So sometimes again we like forget to look outside of ourselves.
Very true. Very true.
So just showing that, being able to see it, you know, sometimes like you know it,
Yeah.
but you just need like that quick little reminder. So the like the picture cards.
Yeah.
Out there's just like a little one that you know somebody maybe flashes across the room that says, "Share."
Yeah. It's a prompt that's outside of yourself, right? You're not verbally saying it. You're not actually physically prompting. You're not like, you know, out of context modeling a random behavior. It's just like that quick visual that gives that prompt and you don't have to say anything. It's least, I feel like it's not as intrusive of a prompt. And so that is extremely effective, you know, in the work that we do. We use visual prompts all the time.
Oh, it works everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all use visual prompts for all sorts of different things, right? Like setting an alarm to drink water.
Mhm.
It pops up on my watch every 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes, but you know what I mean. But it's a quick little visual prompt that I set for myself to drink water because even though my big jug is sitting right here, I constantly forget all day, every day to drink water.
It kind of blends into the
Yeah.
scenario to like something that little prompt, which is you can see it's like it's a clue to help like move it along, to help remind somebody of something. And then like maybe for those who need more intense prompts like the picture cards, the visuals, and then we'll start doing what we call like the fading of prompts, prompt fading. So like where we take a little bit of the prompt away until the skill is independent. So like these ones are great, you know, models, promptings, and then kind of like slowly dial it back so that we can create that independent pro-social behavior.
Yeah, like for example, going back to the water example, the more intrusive prompt could be like it pops up and tells me drink your water, and then a less intrusive prompt would be then like maybe it just vibrates and it doesn't have a visual attached to it. But now that I've learned, like every time my watch vibrates, I that's my prompt to drink water, you know, and then kind of fading to that to me actively independently just knowing like every 10 minutes or so like I'm drinking water because now I'm used to that skill, you know.
Yeah.
So that's prompting. That's what fading prompts would look like
Yeah.
in a scenario like that.
So here is our reinforcement and acknowledgement. Um, so what we like to do is that the behavior that we want to see more happen is that what we do is the reinforce. The reinforce is like giving the hurrahs, cheering, so that that behavior is more likely to happen again. Because we want those behaviors to happen again. So like the first couple times, like
Being overly excited about it.
oh yeah, for a while it was just getting somebody to go to the bathroom was just every step of the way was a party.
Oh yeah.
Like, yay, to the point where, we faded some prompts out. So it was like we got to the point where as soon as like they finished washing hands, it was just one big because now they had all those other skills independently.
Yeah.
So we want them to engage in it. So we're gonna cheer them on. As that positive reinforcement of like giving them something to continue it.
Yeah.
So we have to acknowledge the action, not just the effort. Of like, good job, way to go. It's like, I saw you do this. Good job. So that really helps them understand like this is the exact action that got me this cheer.
Yeah. That's something we do in training all the time of how to specifically give praise instead of just being like, good job, great, nice work. Like really and truly getting specific about, I really like the way you shared your toys. I really like the way you walked nicely with me to the bathroom.
I like it when my friends tell me what they need.
Exactly. So giving that specific praise, because good job can mean so many different things.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I literally just picked my booger. Like, good job.
Yeah.
But if it was, the act of, thinking about picking your booger and then you actually put your hand down instead, and I said, good job, like that would be confusing in that moment, right? Like you want to actively say, like, thanks for having nice hands. I really appreciate that,
Yeah. So being as specific and especially when you're starting out, as immediate
Yes.
as it happens, so they automatically know like you put your toys away without me having to ask. Yay! As soon as they put it away,
Yeah.
it's like you did it. You put it away. You did it very well.
Yeah. And that's a part of the prompting part too. Like you have to be like overly excited for the little things at the beginning. So it's like when you're teaching something, it's like they take even a half a step towards what you're trying to get them to do. You want to be so excited that they're like, yeah, I did something right. So then they're actively taking that second step, and then you're like, oh yeah, you're not giving that praise until that second step then, and then the next step and the next step, and as they're getting closer, it's not like you're not giving them praise throughout, but your like high praise is now attached to the newest part of that skill that they're learning.
That empowerment of like, oh, well, I did this part for myself. And even if it's like the small bit, it's still that feeling of like accomplishment.
Yeah.
And you want to keep going. You want to keep going with that feeling of accomplishment until,
Sure.
they do the whole thing. It's, like, yes, I'm gonna cheer you on because like, you looked at the cashier.
Yeah.
When that terrifies you. Way to go, you did it. Could you, give them a high five? Way to go.
Yeah.
You say hello and until like they start doing it independently. So, pro-social doesn't mean just like having those conversations, but just those social interactions and, as everybody say, majority of, communication is that nonverbal.
Yeah.
And so it's just that attitude about it, looking at them like, way to go, to build until like maybe it develops into conversations. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
But way to be a part of it, way to be in it.
Yeah. And they'll learn that really, really fast, honestly. Like that's what I see with our kiddos is they learn that really fast if you're giving that proper reinforcement at the right moment, like you said, immediately, and as like right at that step that they're at. And like that was a hard moment for them, and you're there with that, recognition and that praise. They learn it really fast once if you're doing it at that proper schedule,
Because it's not the lack of desire, because they want to be a part of things.
Yeah.
And giving them the empowerment, to letting them know like you did it, then you could keep going is really important. And I've seen it. I've cheered on one kid so much that they ended up cheering me on for putting on my shoes. And I'm like,
modeling.
thanks.
There you
Sometimes
go.
putting on my shoes is hard. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I love that.
Yeah.
um
So I want them to like feel happy about it. Like you want that connection of that praise, that pro-social to be like a good feeling. Because a lot of part of like the trauma informed care is that sometimes these little things are associated with like the fear, those negative feelings. So helping, rework it to that these kinds of things feel good.
Yeah.
They're not so scary. You know, it's a really big thing.
Yeah. Shift that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Which is great for when things go wrong.
Oh,
Something will always go wrong. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter where, something goes wrong, but it's okay. Because first we're gonna regulate. Because a part of like these big meltdowns when things go wrong is now everything in my body is off. I don't like it. My body's feeling weird now. So what we do is we help calm the system down. You know, it's not the time for the lesson. So first what we need to do is like regulate, get down to at least a base level. You know, this could be, you know, different things for different people. For me, I kind of need that sensory deprivation. Don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't touch me. I need to go sit by myself and just breathe it out, you know, my big dragon breath.
yeah. See, and I'm the opposite. I want the hugs and cuddles and like, I like a good cry. But I'm the opposite, right? I need some more of that sensory input um whenever I'm feeling upset. So
And, you know,
it can look different for everyone,
it
you
does
know?
look different for everyone. And so that's a big part of like regulating. You know, what works for you doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
But that's okay. That's fine. We should know and we're get at least get to know what works for our kids.
Yeah.
So we're gonna regulate, help bring down the nervous system. 'Cause, you know, too escalated that can lead to, you know, behaviors of like communication
Yeah.
that's a little bit more severe, the throwing, aggression.
Yeah.
So we're going to regulate, we're going to calm down, we're going to get to base level, and then we're going to relate to it. You know, I personally I do the regulate first. I won't even talk about how they're feeling
Yeah.
until afterwards because that's not the place
Yes.
for it.
No, and what's happening is that when somebody's heightened, and this goes for everyone, right? When somebody's heightened, their brain switches from being in your prefrontal cortex to a different part of your brain that is your fight or fight response.
Mhm.
So if anyone is heightened at any point, they're not thinking with their rational part of their brain. Like that rationality, that common sense is not even there. So if somebody is crying or you see that they're, not regulated emotionally, trying to talk through a situation with them in that moment is you're just going to grind your gears, and it's actually going to make them escalate further
And that's
because
like
they're fighting and flighting, and in that moment it feels like a fight. It doesn't feel like, a calm down. It doesn't feel like they're being heard, so they're going to fight it even more, you
oh,
know so that's why that part is so important, to regulate, to get to a level where they're, actively calm, and breathing at an appropriate, um, level. And then after that, that's why the step two is to relate. Is after that, once they're a little bit calm, they're able to think through things a little bit,
mhm.
you know, better. And so they're actively able to reason and logically think through things. So that's when those conversations should happen.
You know, that's why I need like that sensory deprivation. Don't look at me, don't talk because if I'm up and then you touch me, my fist talk first. And you know, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But and you know, to understanding myself and like letting people know around me know like I just
Just
need
need
my
a minute.
space.
Yeah.
And so once like I get my breathing down, it's like, okay, like, hey, bud, you were really upset there. And I do think it's important to label that feeling now at the relate part
Hmm.
because sometimes they don't understand or they don't know that that's
What even
what it
happened?
is.
Yeah. They
So
don't
it's
know.
like, hey, you're feeling a little frustrated. You look upset, you know, and then this is when we can start identifying what they're feeling. And then now we can move on to like reasoning. This is when we talk about what happened and like what they did and versus what we could do next time. Like, hey, bud, you looked a little frustrated. And then maybe they'll respond with like, yeah, you know, this happened. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, next time we can do this instead. If we're starting to feel like we're getting upset, we can, pardon me, I like for me, again with like the sensory deprivation, you say, I need to go somewhere else. You
Yeah.
know, that's, you know, something that we can do next time. And that's that's
Yeah.
maybe just the next step. It's just like, hey, this is what we can do, and
Mhm.
figuring out what happened, and
Yeah.
as the adult, this is where I put my adult hat on. I'm like, okay, how can I help this next time? What's the work for next time?
Yeah, and so you really want to talk through, what actually happened, the emotion attached to it. You definitely want to give that, label that emotion, and talk about what happened. And then you don't want to then, like, when you're talking about the reasoning part, you don't want to go in and just straight up be like, well, next time don't do this, next time don't do that. Like, um in our practice, we actively stay away from those negatives. We don't say no. We don't say don't do this. We
Those are just so
typically,
enticing.
they are, because in their mind, they're now seeing what you're telling them to not do, right? So if you're like, oh, don't throw these things when you're upset, they're in their mind, they're seeing that picture of throwing things.
And that's what they get
And
stuck
that's
on.
what they get stuck on. So then you actively want to give them that picture every single time, that positive picture of what it's supposed to look like, right? So, like, you can talk about what happened, like, hey, you're upset, you threw your toys. Um, um, Next time, let's, put our toys down and talk through what happened. Or, if they're able to attend to that, then talk through what happened. But next time, let's, put our toys down nicely, and, go to our quiet space if we need a moment, or ask for a break, or, ask for some time alone, or something, when you're feeling upset, whatever it is that feels nice for you in that moment,
Yeah.
actively using your communication tools and skills. That's what would be appropriate in that moment. So you want to give them what to do and not what to not do. Always give them the picture of what you want, of the behavior you're looking for, because that's going to be important, because in their mind, that's the picture that gets stuck.
Mhm. I know for myself, like I need something to replace it. So, sometimes like when I get angry, like I go home and I bake. Because, for me, kneading dough is getting that physical output that I need to.
Yeah.
And that's the more appropriate, the pro-social way of doing this.
Mhm.
So if you want to throw, like instead of being this sort of throw, we go get the ball. We go squish the ball,
Yeah.
replace it with something that is more appropriate. 'Cause
Yeah.
it is appropriate to throw a ball.
Like,
It
if you're
is more
frustrated and you want to throw something and that's the only thing that's going to make you feel better, by all means, grab a ball and throw it in the right place. I mean, don't throw it at the lights, but, like, like, but that's the more appropriate way to get that physical need out, right? So, yeah, exactly. Giving that replacement behavior is really, really important too. Um, During that reasoning time, that's where you can really talk through, what is the right thing to do. Because even if you're like, especially when you're giving a negative directive, like, don't do this,
Mhm.
in their mind, even if they're not the type of kid who gets stuck with that picture, which most people are, like, even I am,
Yeah.
but what also is happening is that they don't know what to actually do, that they don't, like, that's something they would have to just go and figure out. But it's so much easier if you actively tell them what was wrong in that situation and what to do that would be the right way to appropriately react in that moment. It really takes that extra thinking time out for them, which they really do struggle with that executive dysfunction. It's really difficult, especially if they're, a kid who has high sensory needs. They're
Right.
constantly heightened, so they're constantly not in the rational part of their brain. So really and truly, kind of doing that research part for them and telling them, this is what happened, this is what was, not a great reaction, here's what we can do next time to
It's not
get the
enough
same.
to just say,
Yeah,
you're mad, stop doing that.
exactly.
Because they still need to get it out.
Mhm.
They still need to release it.
Yeah.
Because if it just stays in like, oh, don't do this, then it just
It's just building
builds and
up.
builds
It's
and
just
builds.
building up. Giving that replacement behavior is very, very important, especially if it's a high sensory need, right? Like,
Oh,
for you, like the kneading dough, that's the perfect replacement behavior. But a lot of times, the the main, like, go to response to someone who's getting angry is, go work out, go for a run, get that physical sensory out in some way. Go jump on a trampoline, go, punch a punching bag. But like, if you need that physical sensory out, there are proper ways to do that. There are appropriate places to do that.
And and I've done it a lot where with kids who are like mad and like, looks like you're getting mad, but like before we've had like the breakdown, the meltdown, like looks like you're getting mad. Do we need to go jump it out?
Yeah.
And then they say, yeah, because now that's something to do about it. And then as soon as they start getting on the trampoline, they start off angry. They're like, yeah, jump it
Yeah.
out. And then now they're smiling at the end of it because they
Mhm.
got it out and they were able to physically regulate themselves.
Yeah.
And then we've completely changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and that's really great. Like that, giving that choice right in the beginning, and like noticing what's happening in the moment, like that. It sometimes you don't make it to that point, but if you notice that, and like if you've already practiced the labeled emotion, and you've already practiced giving the directive of what you should do, that's a perfect moment to practice that, of like, oh, what can we do in this moment? Like, I see you're getting frustrated, we talked about this, like, what can we do? It really snaps them out of that that heightened state. Like, they're getting angry, but it's still making them think, so they're not going over the edge, and going into that heightened state, and going into that tantrum, and then that when they're not thinking anymore and they're just throwing things. It really helps them kind of like pull it back real fast, think through that emotion, and actively practice what we had already talked about, one, or listen to your directive of like, what, that does sound good right now, like I do need to physically get it out, so I'm gonna go and do that. Like, that's a good idea. Giving them that option and that choice right in the beginning will really help. Just kind of rein some of these behaviors back before it even gets to a point where it's super heightened.
And then that's when we move on to our repair. So, like, yes, we understood that, we got mad, this is what we could do next time, but, it's still taking accountability for it. This is what happened when we're upset. We have to find a way, to like fix it. So I always call it like, the redemption arc. You threw your toys like, all right, well, we've got a good jump on the trampoline after us, but we got to clean up our toys a little bit first. Well, like, and it give them like, if it was like 20 toys on the floor, I say 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because it still gives them like that chance to like pick it up and like, okay, and then we'll clean the rest once we're feeling better. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not so daunting in like the repair stage. Sometimes it is like, you
You're
hurt
so
my
sensitive.
feelings.
Yeah.
Let me find something to like fix it, repair it so like we can keep going. And so it can be like that hug, that apology. I didn't want to share my toys before, but and I still don't want to share that toy, but I will find you a different toy
Yeah.
to share with. Give that gesture of goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's a full process of like when things go wrong that we go through the being upset, the having
Yeah.
the moment, regulating out, labeling it, reasoning with it, what can we do next time, and then fixing it.
Yep.
It's a very lengthy process. And, even after a fight, like at home with my partner, like I go through it all, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And sometimes that sorry,
Yeah, that's sorry. Like, hug it out a little bit, and like, you could still be angry, but it's like that is part of the repairing process, like, you're still going through your emotions, but like that little bit of apology, and a little bit of just like hugging, it really builds that connection back to where you're still in that safe space, um you're still in that safe space, which means you can feel the emotions you're feeling.
And I think it's really great, especially for like kids that like get sad or like scared like after they've had this like an episode.
Mhm.
And then like maybe they're gonna be like maybe skittish and nervous around you after that because they don't know if that relationship is repaired or not. And then so having that
Yeah.
repairing, showing like, yes, this happened. We know what we're gonna do next time, but we are okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
We're okay. And that's a big part of like building that pro social is just it's
Yeah.
happened, but we're okay.
Yeah. And I feel like I feel that sometimes in the relate one also, of when we're connecting with them, of like, hey, I see you're feeling frustrated. I see you're angry, but like that's okay. It's okay to feel that way, you know, and like trying to talk it through with them during that moment also is important for that relationship building and keeping that repair portion there, versus, you know, you also having a reaction and getting angry, because that can also be scary, you know. All right.
Alrighty, so that is our spiel on building pro-social behaviors of finding what works,
Mm-hmm.
running with it, modeling what you would maybe like to see a little bit more, and knowing that things will go wrong at some point or another, but we can work through it, and we can fix it, and we can keep going.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions?
Or any scenarios you'd like to talk through. I mean, I know we're a little bit over on time, but you know, we have time. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, any scenarios that you're like, well, what do we do in this moment? You know, we'd be happy to share our thoughts on that. Anyone? No.
Fair enough. That was a lot of information to digest. But if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, I believe the email that sent you this,
The info@verityaba.com.
please feel free to reach out, ask your questions, maybe come in for a consultation so we could talk about it. Please let us know. We're here to help.
Yeah. We are also doing a social story series, which would be a great tool for anybody that needs it for visuals. If you have a specific scenario that you want to send us, we will create that social story visual for you, free of charge. That's just something that we're doing. So, you know, if you or anyone that you know needs a social story and that would be a helpful visual for you, you know, send it our way, and we will get that back to you when we're able to.
Alrighty, well, that was the Verity.
That was the very tea, and I finished my tea. You didn't finish yours.
All right, well, thank you. Hopefully, we'll see you again next week. And if you would like to review over any of this information, I will be posting this video at the end of the week on our YouTube channel at Verity ABA. But thank you so much for joining. We appreciate your time.
Alrighty. Thank you guys.
Thank you.